Part 19. A Middle School Cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 181. On the street, Yoshida was riding a motorcycle, running angrily. Because he was wearing a helmet, he couldn't see the expression on Yoshida's face, but now Yoshida is definitely in a state of rage. Because the chaotic aura on Yoshida means that he is in the process of Dark Million evolution. And the culprit behind all this is, of course, Makoto Takahashi, and the little sea otter-kun who was plotted against him but had no idea. Going back in time, the cause of the matter still starts from the last resurrection tea party held for the little sea otter. At that tea party, the little sea otter finally abandoned all confusion, determined the goal of the strategy, and planned to give Kang Shuhong a sea otter. No, he planned to let Kang Shuhong make a little sea otter with him. But Yoshida, who was very familiar with the little sea otter's temperament, took adequate precautions and did not give the little sea otter a chance. Realizing that it was not the best time, the little sea otter finally followed Makoto Takahashi's well-intentioned advice, secretly made an appointment with Kang Shuhong, found an opportunity to get rid of Yoshida, and then had a talk with Miss Kang Shuhong. A romantic getaway. Of course, if the situation develops well and time permits, then maybe you will have a chance to have a shot with the eldest lady. If you shoot accurately, it will not be difficult to get a small sea otter. When formulating the plan, facing the hesitant little sea otter, Takahashi Makoto decisively threw out this sure kill bait and successfully captured a small humanoid sea otter. Watching Makoto Takahashi strategizing in order to change his job from a magician to a wife, the little sea otter's affection and affinity towards Makoto Takahashi are constantly increasing, especially when Makoto Takahashi narrates the complete plan to the little sea otter. After hearing this, the little sea otter's favorability and intimacy reached its peak, and he even abandoned his previous beliefs without any moral integrity and became the most loyal believer of the Phoenix Academy's fierce god. According to the settings of Pokemon, the power of little sea otter's return a favor trick at this time is already comparable to the King of Leaves' Billion Shockwave. Matchmaker. Well, Makoto Takahashi is not a transvestite, he is a real man, like a penis. The assistant Ding Ding Quan, who was innocently lying at gunpoint, burst into tears when he faced Yu Lao. The kind of existence that has been matched countless times and helped countless crazy men and women but ended up alone. Takahashi Makoto, a scheming scumbag, doesn't seem to have such a noble character. Takahashi Makoto is not the Yu Lao matchmaker whose talent and skill mistakenly turned out to be Tianxia Lone Star Halo, but a maniacal cartoonist, Phoenix Academy Fierce One. As for the reason why Takahashi Makoto did this, I will explain it later. Today is the agreed day for the implementation of the plan. Hey! Little sea otter, adopt an emergency strategy immediately. Makoto Takahashi's voice came from the little sea otter's headset, sounding a little angry, because of the appearance of the betrayer. Our plan has been leaked. Now, my beloved cat has reacted and is using the power of the shining fruit to move at high speed in your direction. What? Yoshida, who was stammering while talking to Miss Kang Shuhong, immediately stood up in panic, and his face instantly turned pale. The Yoshida family, has the Yoshida family discovered it yet? Lord Phoenix Academy, now, what should I do now? Humph. Don't panic, I already have a countermeasure. Makoto Takahashi, who was standing on the roof not far away, holding a telescope, saw the panic on the little sea otter's face, and his face was filled with anticipation. He smiled, but his tone was still the same as before. While hoarse, he did not forget to maintain a trace of anxiety. Little sea otter, now facing the raid of my beloved cats, you have two choices. Either give up everything now and stay where you are. I waited for orders on the ground, and then was severely repaired by the angry cat of my family. After that, I became the hardest cartoonist in the cartoon world, drawing cartoons all day long, with no time to rest, no time to date, Wait until after the family cat drains your value from the little sea otter, it will be thrown into the trash can like a rag. Of course, the other option is Yashida, Yashida. Listening to what Makoto Takahashi said, and recalling his previous lifestyle, the little sea otter instantly fell into a state of fear. That kind of life that is worse than a sea otter is definitely not what I want. Lord God, please don't abandon your most devout believer. Please save me. Yo 11, good boy. The Phoenix Academy will never give up on any believer. Looking at the fearful expression on the little sea otter's face, Takahashi Makoto showed a satisfied smile on his face. Think about it, before the little sea otter who sheds tears when you see it, smells the sad life in hell, and is tortured and oppressed by my cat, the time has come to fight back. As a reward for believing in the fierce god of the Phoenix Academy, I will guide you to the other side of victory, free from restraints. In the happy devil world. Then, do what I told you. Kang Shuhong, who was dating the little sea otter, looked at the little sea otter's unusual behavior of nodding and shaking his head, with a trace of doubt on his face. But just when Kang Shuhong was about to ask a question, he saw the little sea otter looking at him with a strange expression. Thera, teacher Hiramaru, what happened? Aoki Hong, who was frightened by the little sea otter's eyes, moved back subconsciously. Yuri-chan, don't say anything now. The little sea otter followed the way Makoto Takahashi did before, grabbed Aoki Kurane's hand, turned around and ran. Hey! That guy, the little sea otter, didn't adopt the method of being hugged by the princess, but the eldest lady actually didn't resist at all, and was directly taken away by the little sea otter on the escape journey. This is the so-called holding the child's hand, taking the child. The rhythm of dragging away seems to be a little different from the previous plan. Makoto Takahashi, who observed everything through the telescope, curled his lips in displeasure and complained resentfully, it seems that now, the difficulty of the dungeon needs to be increased. That's all right. At the same time, Yashida has entered an obsessive mode. Previously, Yashida secretly installed a positioning system on Little Sea Otter's imported car. Following the prompts of the mobile phone navigation, Yashida transformed into a Bosozoku berserker and finally caught up with the Little Sea Otter's car. But looking at Brother Fukuda and his assistant sitting in the car, Yashida was dumbfounded. After hearing that Little Sea Otter had specially bought the imported car at a high price and sold it at a low price just for this day, Yashida's anger reached the maximum. Speaking of which, the Little Sea Otter spends a lot of money in order to clear this courtship copy. It's quite a struggle. Sell the imported cars at low prices. Yashida had a gloomy smile on his face, and his eyes were full of murderous intent, which made Fukuda and his assistants on the side feel chilled. To actually achieve this level, it seems that I underestimated Hiramaru-kun before. Brother Fukuda smiled at Yashida, who was gradually turning dark. He lost his bold tone in the past and awkwardly tried to explain something. He just hesitated for a long time and didn't even say a complete sentence. Cheng, where is Mr. Hiramaru's current location? In the surprised eyes of Brother Fukuda, Yashida didn't hesitate at all and asked Takahashi Makoto for help. Hiramaru-kun's action this time was definitely planned early. Although I didn't quite believe it when you told me before, but now it seems that you are right, Cheng. Have you finally realized your own ignorance? Superficial human beings, Makoto Takahashi said slowly and leisurely on the other side of the phone, my beloved cat, you know the rules, you know the sacrifice for 100 people pin, are you ready? If you want to know something, you have to pay for it. This is the truth. Even you, my beloved cat, are no exception. 100 sacrifices, Takahashi Makoto, do you think you are a million snakes, or a demon from another world? You're just a middle-grade cartoonist, okay. Cheng, at this time, can you communicate in a normal way? Yashida said that he could only make complaints in his heart. At this time, he had to ask for help from others, so naturally he couldn't express it out loud. Humph. My beloved cat, you just seem to have used the complaint skill on me in your heart, right? Makoto Takahashi, who observed everything through the telescope, snorted coldly and continued to stimulate him with a malicious tone. Yoshida, speaking of my beloved cat, the little sea otter is now holding Kang Shuhong's hand, and is preparing to take her to a dark and remote place regardless of the young lady's resistance. I don't need to say more about what happens next. Right? Events not suitable for children, you know. Remote location, inappropriate events for children. After thinking about what the little sea otter might do, Yoshida was instantly petrified. When Yoshida didn't respond for a long time, Makoto Takahashi hesitated and revealed the route of the little sea otter to Yoshida before the call ended. Similar to your high-end imported car before, my familiar cat also used hidden spells on your code to easily track your whereabouts. Makoto Takahashi contacted the little sea otter again. Changed into a hurried tone, and before the little sea otter could ask the question, he hurriedly said, "Little sea otter, take off your coat quickly." Although the little sea otter didn't react at the first moment, due to the power of love, the calculation capacity of the brain temporarily increased to the level of a powerful person, and he understood Takahashi Makoto's implied words. Imported cars, spells, to control whereabouts, it's a positioning system. Has Mr. Yoshida become so insane? The little sea otter looked shocked and angry. He immediately took off his coat without hesitation and threw it to the roadside. Yes, that's it. Seeing the behavior of the little sea otter, Makoto Takahashi on the phone kept nodding. Spread the wings of hope, break through the dark world created by my beloved cat, and fly to the bright dimension. I will witness you and the eldest lady coming to the top of the world. Keep moving forward, little sea otter, because the wings of love will not be restrained by a mere existence like my familiar cat. Constantly switching calls between Yoshida and the little sea otter, Takahashi Makoto held a telescope and stood on the roof of a building, directing the two of them to play a game called Escape and Chase, and they had a great time. Although he really wants to continue playing this game, Takahashi Makoto also knows very well that if he continues like this, he will eventually be discovered by the two of them. So, entering the second stage of the game, my favorite cat's verbal abuse vs the little sea otter's love obsession. So far, it's the same as the previous plan. My subordinate cats and little sea otters continue to play the game as mortals, becoming chess pieces manipulated by me, becoming toys to please me, and making my Phoenix Academy fierce and aloof. Soul, gain supreme pleasure. After all humans in the world are just the playthings of our Phoenix Academy. This is the choice of Steins Gate. The wild laughter of the second graders spread on the roof. Speaking of Takahashi Makoto, with that smile on your face, do you still dare to say that you are not the second grader? A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 182. Hey, my beloved cat, the little sea otter's escape this time should be related to the failure of the previous holy war. When your desperate life comes to an end, before traveling to another world, you will definitely want to meet the person you love most. Perhaps because of the obsession in my heart, I will take that person with me to leave this world and find a higher dimension. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Looking for the last chance of redemption. If the young lady uses additional damage without knowing it, and the little sea otter-kun is injured twice, he will. Because I couldn't complete the redemption, I turned into a berserk warrior dominated by anger. Killing and destruction dominated my reason. Such a life of despair. Although Takahashi Makoto used the lingua franca of the other world, Yoshida, who had spent a lot of time with Takahashi Makoto, still roughly understood what Takahashi Makoto meant. But precisely because of this, Yoshida became even more anxious. It seems that the end of the series this time is a major blow to Hiramaru-kun. Although I submitted a new serial last time, it unfortunately didn't pass, and that idiot was actually planning to confess his love to Miss Kang Shuhong at this time. If he was rejected, he would never be able to cheer up again. If this continues, things will become very troublesome. Here American must be found as soon as possible. My beloved cat, target found. Reminder, the system has detected abnormal behavior of the little sea otter, please pay attention to defense and avoidance of the high energy ahead. Makoto Takahashi stood in the sightseeing elevator, coming from the top of the building to the downstairs, watching from a distance. When I arrived at Little Sea Otter's sports car, I had an expectant smile on my face and immediately connected with Yoshida. The system calculates that there are still 5 minutes until the target reaches the designated location. The world-destroying magic, my familiar cat's roar is being chanted. Roar your sister. When did my roar become a world-destroying magic? System or something? Makoto Takahashi, have you evolved from a human to a robot? Yoshida suppressed the urge to complain in 3 sections, rode his motorcycle towards the place designated by Makoto Takahashi, and hurried there. Little Sea Otter, my companion cat has seen through your actions. After switching the call partner, Takahashi Makoto, the mastermind behind the scenes, entered the call mode again with the Little Sea Otter. Although I have guessed that such a situation will happen, but we have to. It's faster than we expected. So, Little Sea Otter, are you ready? All right, ready. The Little Sea Otter was a little stunned. Hey. Have you forgotten it? Or are you satisfied with just taking a car ride with the eldest lady? Makoto Takahashi is now standing on the overpass, using binoculars to look at the yellow sports car approaching in the distance. His face, he smiled like an instigator. Do you want to understand the true meaning of your life? Do you want your relationship with the eldest lady to go further? The second plan I prepared for you is to deal with such a scenario. Little Sea Otter, the time has come. The Lord of the Phoenix Academy, whom you believe in, is with you. I know, although his tone was still hesitant, under Makoto Takahashi's instigation, a trace of determination flashed in the Little Sea Otter's eyes. Then, let me, the fierce Phoenix Academy, witness your bravery, Little Sea Otter. After ending the call, Takahashi Makoto showed a devilish smile on his face. Now that the chess pieces are in place, let me see, you mortals, how can you please me, the fierce Phoenix Academy? Drink, ha 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 ha. Under the guidance of Makoto Takahashi, Yoshida gradually caught up with the Little Sea Otter who abducted Miss Kang Shuhong. Although Little Sea Otter specially changed to a new sports car for today's plan, Little Sea Otter has completely forgotten that no matter how high-end the performance of a sports car is, it cannot beat a motorcycle in a crowded city. The distance between Yoshida and the Little Sea Otter is gradually getting closer, and the Little Sea Otter can even see the smile on Yoshida's face in the rearview mirror. Miss Kangshu, let's abandon the car. This time, without Makoto Takahashi's command, the Little Sea Otter instinctively chose the best response. But didn't you just buy this car? And the eldest lady was a little surprised by the Little Sea Otter's choice. Having gone for a ride with Miss Kangshu is already a good deal. First he proposed a date, then entered the escape stage, then was caught up in the middle, and now he abandoned the car and fled. It is obviously a commonly used plot in novels and comics, but this time it happened in reality, and he was involved as a party involved. It was the first time Kang Shuhong experienced such a feeling. She felt like she was in a dream. Her heartbeat was a little faster than usual. She didn't know whether it was because of running or after selling the imported sports car at a low price, now just to avoid Yoshida's tracking, he gave up a high-end sports car again. Although the Little Sea Otter was just a subconscious behavior forced by helplessness, in Kang Shuhong's eyes, it was something else. After all, the double combo of spending a lot of money is an extremely effective move for most women, not to mention Miss Kang Shuhong, who has a particularly strong literary and artistic aura. In the final analysis, human beings, especially women, are all emotional. Syndrome of stupid creatures. So once again, Kang Shuhong was grabbed by the little sea otter's hand and started running. This time, Kang Shuhong also showed no resistance at all. She stared at the back of the little sea otter and didn't know what she was thinking. Here American, you can never escape. Yoshida crossed his hands on his chest and looked up at the little sea otter on the overpass. He completely ignored the surprised eyes of passers-by and shouted loudly. Hey! It's exactly what the Lord of the Phoenix Academy said. Yoshida really caught up with him. Looking at Yoshida under the overpass, the little sea otter was in a dilemma. He didn't notice at all that he was still holding the hand of Miss Kang Shuhong. Yoshida, by the way, why are you chasing me? Of course it's because I'm worried. Yoshida's shameless statement was of course secretly recorded by Makoto Takahashi, who was hiding in the dark. Don't lie, Mr. Yoshida, you just want to get promoted for yourself, so you keep encouraging me to draw comics. Even the previous arrangement of tea party with Yuri-chan was just a bait for me to draw comics. God of the Phoenix Academy, Your Excellency has told me all the truth. Where there is resistance, there is oppression. The little sea otter has been oppressed by the demon overseer Yoshida for a long time, and this time it finally broke out. I don't want to draw comics anymore, I want to take a 2-year break. This is not possible, 2 years is too long. Yoshida rejected the little sea otter's request without hesitation. You know, here American, listen to me. Here it goes again, listen to me. It happens every time. I don't want to hear it. Yoshida switched to talking mode and launched an attack on the little sea otter. The little sea otter couldn't dodge and was hit. The effect was outstanding. The little sea otter couldn't hold on and fell down. I don't want to draw comics anymore. Today I don't have to be chased by deadlines, and I don't have to think about how to continue drawing comics. I am finally liberated. How happy I am to spend time with Miss Aoki Kurane, Yoshida-san, do you understand? Because of the high power output, the little sea otter, who was hit by Yoshida's mouth cannon, fell to his knees in despair, forgetting that Miss Kang Shuhong was beside him, and vented his inner words without hesitation. Yoshida is the happiest day in my life. Because Yoshida switched to talking mode, his combat power continued to increase, and he approached the little sea otter step by step, but at this moment, a white figure suddenly stood between the little sea otter and Yoshida. Oh, it's forbidden to pass here. My beloved cat, for the next time, you just have to be a quiet and handsome man. Makoto Takahashi suddenly appeared and stood in front of Yoshida from the other side of the overpass. Gently waved the wooden sword in his hand, otherwise, it will be a one-way trip to hell, you know. Lord Phoenix Academy God, the little sea otter looked at Makoto Takahashi, who was wearing a white coat and holding a wooden sword, with a hint of surprise on his face. Hey, little sea otter, Makoto Takahashi looked back at the little sea otter, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Don't waste this rare opportunity today, just go ahead with the plan. My companion, the cat, just leave it to me. Cheng, what do you want to do? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi, who suddenly appeared, with a hint of surprise on his face. After recalling everything that happened before, his expression became a little gloomy, and the corners of his mouth kept twitching. It turns out it's you, Cheng. Have you reacted yet? Tisk tisk tisk, my beloved cat, I have to say that it's a pity that you have lost this collision of wills. Takahashi Makoto showed an expectant smile on his face, pointing with his wooden sword. Yoshida whispered in his ear, is it the collapse of personality and the collapse of faith? Or is it salvation and rebirth? Next, you just need to quietly witness everything. That's right, today is indeed very important to me. The little sea otter took out the gift he had prepared before from his pocket. A trace of determination flashed in his eyes. There is something I must tell Miss Kang Shuhong no matter what. Through a series of previous behaviors, Yoshida analyzed the little sea otter and wanted to confess to Miss Kang Shuhong. But the little sea otter, who is easily depressed, would stop drawing comics and give up his career as a cartoonist because Kang Shuhong refused to confess. The road, Yoshida is scared just thinking about it. Could it be, it can't be done, Hiramaru-kun, although Yoshida tried to call back the little sea otter who was crazy about love, it was already too late. Isn't it good to always regard Miss Kang Shuhong as the lover of your dreams? Hey! Of course this is not good. Makoto Takahashi held a wooden sword to Yoshida's throat, with a smile on his face that made Yoshida cringe. Wanting to possess everything, wanting to get everything, the greedy nature is something that human beings cannot, the essence of abandonment. The little sea otter is just acting according to instinct. My beloved cat, you are just a witness now, don't be too arrogant. If you are dumped by Hiramaru-kun, let alone comics, you won't even be able to work. Faced with Takahashi Makoto's threat, Yoshida did not hesitate to express his concerns and tried to wake up the little sea otter again. Ms. Yoshida. Don't mix work and love. Don't take advantage of other people's feelings. It's so rude to miss So Juhong. The little sea otter stood up, held the gift in his hand tightly, and took a deep breath. His tone was, I'm a man. So no matter what the outcome. Calm down, Yoshida was interrupted by someone before he could finish his words. Isn't this great? Takahashi Makoto stood behind Yoshida, stretched out his hand to cover Yoshida's mouth, temporarily limiting Yoshida's ability to speak, and at the same time did not forget to tell Yoshida his purpose. I think you, my cat, have already discovered that all this is arranged by me behind the scenes. If the confession fails, the little sea otter will lose all his dreams and hopes, and the so-called life will fall into an abyss that cannot be saved, and I, Feng Guangai Yuan Kuma, will get an obedient puppet, a toy that can be manipulated at will. Of course, if the little sea otter succeeds this time, then he will strengthen his faith in the god Feng Guangai Yuan Kuma, even if he is allowed to die. Oh, by the way, I will also get a Miss Aoki Hong beast. So no matter what the result is, I will gain something. The only difference is that the little sea otter toy will become a puppet mode with personality disappearance, or an absolutely loyal dogleg mode. You ignorant humans are all toys to please Feng Guangai Yuan Kuma, so that I can play with you as much as possible while destroying the whole world. Ha 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 ha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 183. After the little otter successfully confessed his love to Miss Aoki Hong, just as Makoto Takahashi had expected, while strengthening his faith in Lord Hao Winkuma, he also brainwashed Miss Aoki Hong into becoming a prospective believer. Congratulations! Congratulations! After the completion of Full Metal Alchemist, Ogasa took the lead in obtaining the copyright of the animation before many animation companies, and entered the animation production process in full swing. This news has just been released, and it has led to a surge in the sales of the Full Metal Alchemist single volume. According to the incomplete data previously counted by Yoshida, the sales of the Full Metal Alchemist single volume have exceeded 5 million copies. Congratulations again. Of the three monster comics by Hao Winkuma, Inuyasha is still the most stable. After all, this comic is intended to be serialized for a long time, so like popular comics such as One Piece and Naruto, it is impossible for every episode to have 2 points, and it is impossible for every episode to be exciting. Therefore, Yoshida finally breathed a sigh of relief after achieving such a result. As for the two comics Nura and Ushio Tutora, although they took the first place in an alternating manner for a period of time, Yoshida has always suspected that this was something Takahashi Makoto did on purpose. Because the two comics Ushio Tutora and Nura seem to deliberately avoid each other's strong state. Nura started from the 1000-year Kyoto chapter, telling the grievances between the Nura family, the Hanakin group and the Feathered Fox. Although the content of the main line is like this, if you want to complete a mainline chapter, it is naturally impossible for every episode to be a wonderful monster battle, and daily plots are also indispensable. Therefore, the content of Nura during this period cannot take the first place every time. For example, when Lu Shen was training in the Tono monster village, the discussion of the Nura family monsters did not develop any battles, which naturally made some readers feel unsatisfied. So at this time, the reinforcements from Ushio Totoro appeared. According to Yoshida's observation, every time Nura was not strong, most of the first place was Ushio Totoro. Of course, sometimes, PCP by Ajumumha or Crow by Nyaizuma AG will take the first place, but it is obvious that every time the plot of Nura, ONI is not going well, some surprising developments will be threaded in Ushio Totoro, which will impact the first place. Once or twice can only be said to be accidental, but after this situation happened no less than 10 times, Yoshida naturally realized the problem. Tisk. Did you finally find out? It's a month later than I thought. Tisk tisk tisk, my cat, don't show that kind of look. In the back garden of the king, it is the king's right to do whatever he wants. Wang, your sister. You are just a popular cartoonist now, and you are far behind those great gods. What kind of mentality makes Takahashi Makoto say such words so shamelessly and shamelessly? And, when did Shonen Jump become your back garden? Ah Cheng, you will definitely get retribution. Yoshida has a new understanding of Takahashi Makoto's shamelessness. The cartoonists who also serialized in Shonen Jump also realized that something was wrong. Eiji Nyaizuma was better off. After all, Crow had been serialized for a long time and had a relatively stable popularity. His good friend Yum Ashiro was able to barely hold on because he used a different style of comics. However, Fukuda and the newly serialized Otter were not so lucky, and were completely driven to the brink by Takahashi Makoto's comics, especially Fukuda. The recent 10 or so episodes were ranked in double digits, and the best one was only 9th place. It's really shameless for one person to serialize 3 comics at the same time, Fukuda complained to the editor Yujiro, and immediately he called Takahashi Makoto right away. In this comic ranking, you alone occupy 3 positions. So what? Silver-haired brother, is your tolerance only this level after all? Takahashi Makoto's tepid ridicule made Fukuda on the other end of the phone almost run away. As long as your strength reaches the stage of crossing the tribulation, you can do the same. But a friendly reminder to you, silver-haired brother, if you want to fight against my Phoenix Court Kuma, you are not in the full-level Divine Equipment Jinden stage yet. You still need to go to Siberia and practice with that mother-loving person for a while. Tisk, brother Fukuda, who entered a runaway state, ended the call directly. Speaking of being able to talk about the cartoonist's affairs and the aspect of cultivating the truth and crossing the tribulation, Takahashi Makoto's communication mode that has been separated from attempts, is unstoppable, and is he moving towards the super god mode? Spiritually enjoying unlimited pleasure, following the rule of equivalent exchange, naturally have to pay the corresponding price. Perhaps because of Yoshida's curse, or perhaps because of the resentment of other cartoonists, Takahashi Makoto's joyful mood did not last too long. Because Takahashi Makoto has been in the hospital recently. He was walking on the sidewalk and was hit by an out-of-control car. Instead of discussing the probability of this happening, it is better to follow Yoshida's words. Takahashi Makoto's inexplicable car accident was caused by doing too many bad things in his daily life. It was all his own fault. By the way, you had an eye injury last time and were admitted to the hospital, right? Apart from a middle-grade cartoonist and some scientific researchers, there were only doctors in white coats. The doctor, who was about the age of a grandfather, looked at Makoto Takahashi suspiciously. But this time you were hit by an out-of-control car. Could it be that you deliberately chose to see the nurse dressed as a nurse? In fact, there is no need for you to deny it. It is not a shameful thing. No. Because after mastering the ability to change the world line, I was too arrogant to tease Gaia Lolita, and then I was punished by the law of cause and effect. Makoto Takahashi was lying on the hospital bed, turning his head away with a look of regret. He muttered, "Hey. From the way you spoke before, I thought that after being hit by a car, I traveled to the world of a pickup artist. In my impression, the only doctor in uniform seems to be the shameless one. Guy. You are not seriously injured this time. You can leave after the wound is treated." The doctor sighed. "Alas, no matter how much you like nurse uniforms, there must be a limit. You can be like me, choose to be a doctor. You have to know that people are not always so lucky." It was just a scratch on his thigh, nothing serious, so Takahashi Makoto didn't stay in the hospital for too long. Seeing Makoto Takahashi limping out of the hospital, the worry on Yashida's face disappeared, replaced by a gloating smile. "If you survive a catastrophe, you will be blessed later. Congratulations." "Congratulations." However, this smile did not last long before it turned into shock. Because Takahashi Makoto, who had just walked out of the hospital, was once again attacked by the evil in this world. A car lost control again and hit the stumbling Takahashi Makoto. Makoto Takahashi was admitted to the hospital for the same reason. "Oh, I'm back again." The person in charge was still the same nurse uniform control doctor. "Are you admitted to the hospital because of a car accident again?" "You guy is definitely a nurse uniform control officer. Just to see the uniforms, is it necessary to work so hard?" But this time, Makoto Takahashi was unable to evade as flexibly as he did last time due to his limited mobility, so the injury this time was more serious than last time. Therefore, this time he needed to be hospitalized for a period of time. But speaking of being hospitalized twice due to car accidents in one day, Takahashi Makoto, what kind of crazy and cruel obsession do you have towards the world-conscious Gaia-chan, so that you find such revenge? It's me. A low-level existence like the human body can't accommodate the souls of our association after all. Everything that happened this time was a trap set by the organization against us. That's right. Now the Three Apostles Whiteface Phoenix Academy Fierce Master has been imprisoned by the organization's agents. Therefore, I applied to the Great Leader for the support of Witchrina. I'm sorry, talking on the phone in the hospital will affect others. The little nurse took away Makoto Takahashi's phone and lectured Takahashi Makoto with a righteous expression. She looked at the phone with a look on her face. With a helpless smile, "And the power of the mobile phone has not been turned on as before, right? Humph. This phone will automatically shut down if anyone touches it except me." Makoto Takahashi took the phone back with a proud look on his face. Looking at the call history of the phone, it turned out to be organized. It's the usual style, but it's useless. It's just to prevent such a situation, so this phone is equipped with such a function. Actually, I think you should go to other departments and have a look here. Before the kind-hearted nurse left, she patted her head gently and sent a friendly reminder. Humph. The wisdom of mortals. Makoto Takahashi sneered at the little nurse who left, holding a paintbrush, leaning on the hospital bed and entering cartoonist mode. Although Yashida also advised Takahashi Makoto that since he was injured and hospitalized, he should stop drawing comics and take it as a break, but Takahashi Makoto did not accept this advice. It is said that only the legs were injured, not the hands. Drawing comics, Takahashi Makoto said that he has not yet mastered the brutal survival skill of drawing with his feet. But Makoto Takahashi is still too naive. It is impossible to achieve the task of becoming a quiet cartoonist in the hospital. Needless to say, the assistants came to visit, because Takahashi Makoto was responsible for the plots of the 3 comics alone, so during the time that Takahashi Makoto was admitted to the hospital, the assistants came every day. Other cartoonists, after hearing the news, also came to see Makoto Takahashi. However, some people come more frequently, such as Brother Fusion, Little Sea Otter and so on. Although Brother Fukuda was once caught up in the Unit-01 rampage incident because of Takahashi Makoto's previous ridicule, but after hearing that Takahashi Makoto was admitted to the hospital after 2 car accidents in one day, his heart suddenly became much more balanced, and he also often comes to Takahashi sincerely. Take a look around here. By the way, this is just Takahashi Makoto's personal opinion. The real situation is, Brother Fukuda actually lives nearby. As for the little sea otter, he mainly wanted to be lazy and come to see Makoto Takahashi. Discharge? Are you kidding? Yoshida refused without hesitation Takahashi Makoto's application for discharge. Are you kidding me? Now you are a patient. By the way, give it a good treatment, your Chuyunibu is so bad that it's bone marrow. Oh no. Let me out. Do you think that sealing me in this barrier will stop Fengguangai Yuan Xiongzhen from conquering the world? Foolish human, you are too sweet. Takahashi Makoto proved with his own body that the second-year disease is incurable. When I get out, I will definitely completely wipe out the human species from this world. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 184. Due to Makoto Takahashi's strong request, the fact that the cartoonist Hao Winkuma was hospitalized due to a car accident was not announced. Makoto Takahashi said that the position of lying on the hospital bed to draw comics can improve the cartoonist Hao Winkuma's combat effectiveness. In short, it is the awakening of the cartoonist's soul. Ignoring some middle school ideas, Yoshida speculated based on the current situation that the reason why Makoto Takahashi continued to draw comics so persistently was because he was worried that the editor-in-chief would find an excuse to deprive him of the right to serialize 3 comics at the same time. But looking at Makoto Takahashi drawing on the hospital bed, Yoshida suddenly felt that it was the most appropriate to use it as a role model to educate the little sea otter. So whenever the little otter gets tired of drawing comics, Yoshida will drag him to the hospital to visit Makoto Takahashi, and then take the opportunity to educate him, saying things like the self-cultivation of a cartoonist, the professional ethics of a cartoonist, etc. As expected of Master Hao Winkuma, cough cough, if I do this, I will definitely die. After witnessing Makoto Takahashi drawing comics while lying on the hospital bed, the little otter imagined himself in the same situation, and tried to cover his mouth to stop the blood from coughing up in his delusion. Here American, you should be more ashamed. Don't think that you can slack off after dating Miss Aoki Hong. See. This is what a cartoonist is. He tried to fix the little otter's head and fixed his sight on Makoto Takahashi who was drawing, and the infinite education mode was activated. You're a guy who always wants to take a break from publishing. Are you feeling inferior now? Listen to me. If you want to be a match for Miss Aoki Hong, you have to work hard to be like Makoto. Mr. Yoshida, I get it. I'll definitely draw comics seriously when I go back. The little sea otter finally got rid of Yoshida's abuse and tried to use his magical skill of changing the subject. But Yoshida, why is it that even now, why don't you let God rest? Although I can't see it, what Aiken has is the so-called soul of a cartoonist. Yoshida, who was completely in nonsense mode, didn't see the disdain on Takahashi Makoto's lips. Hey, Aiken, there's no need to do this. After sending the little otter away, Yoshida looked at Takahashi Makoto who was still drawing comics, and showed a helpless smile on his face. The editor-in-chief also told me that since you have such a strong request, your comics will naturally not be cut off for no reason. So Aiken, you don't have to work so hard on yourself. My dependent cat, I didn't expect it. Takahashi Makoto stopped drawing, and his expression became a little gloomy. After becoming my dependent, your knowledge is still so shallow that it's outrageous. Sympathy and pity, you actually have this disgusting feeling, tisk tisk tisk. Is this tolerable? No, absolutely no compromise. Hey, Aiken, you make me sound like a cold-blooded devil, Yoshida complained dissatisfiedly. You lowly humans, it is because of this unwarranted pity that you seem so small and pitiful. Takahashi Makoto put down his brush, a look of disgust on his face. My name is Hao Winkuma, a crazy cartoonist who lets sin and darkness cover the entire human race and returns the world to chaos. I, Hao Winkuma, do not need the mere sympathy of humans. The strong collision between the palm and the forehead is a textbook posture for humans to express their speechless helplessness and double nothingness. Have you given up on treating this level of Shuyunibu? My beloved cat, it seems you still don't understand. Takahashi Makoto spun the brush in his hand, with a mocking sneer on his face. It's not me who gave up on treating it, but the so-called human beings. This is also the root of the whole world's depravity. Sympathy and pity? Why do you need others' sympathy? Why do you need others' pity? The so-called sympathy and pity are just excuses for hypocrites, an excuse to show their nobleness. Humph. In the final analysis, human beings are just hypocrites who will find reasonable excuses to satisfy their own inner desires and be selfish. The comics are serialized normally. The cartoonist named Hao Winkuma continues to serialize 3 monster comics at the same time, just like usual, without any change. So why should Takahashi Makoto's Chuyunibu hospitalization be worthy of sympathy? What is there to be pitied? What kind of setbacks and difficulties the author has suffered? As long as the comics have not stopped serializing, many readers have no idea. That's right, sympathy and pity are completely unnecessary. Because sympathy and pity can't change anything at all. The man named Feng Guangai Yuan Xiongzhen exists. As a crazy cartoonist, he doesn't need the hypocritical and selfish sympathy and pity from humans. Just like after I lost my left eye, the people around me always looked at me with these disgusting eyes. Humph. It's the kind of sympathetic and pity eyes that make me disgusted and have a reversal impulse. How pitiful, lost an eye. What a pity, the handsome boy actually lost an eye. As a cartoonist, he actually lost an eye. I would rather wear a mask and hold on than allow the weak to give sympathy and pity. This is the pride of the strong. Sure enough, the exchange of equal value is an existence that you mortals cannot understand. So when will the ignorant mortals be able to understand? Only by completely abandoning the humble emotions held by human beings can we truly transcend the world. Only in this world can you come to the top of the world and become a god in the new world. Makoto Takahashi, who broke free from the world of memories, released the long-suppressed resentment in his heart and entered a strange mode. My beloved is a cat, you weak ants called humans, are really humble existences. This state, has it escalated from mocking humanity to being hostile to humanity? Yoshida sighed helplessly, such a completely anti-human and anti-social perception. Speaking of Chen, what are you dissatisfied with this world? Because of the species called human beings, the entire world is degenerating and entering a countdown to destruction. By the way, Makoto Takahashi, please don't show this inexplicably dark smile. Hey. Okay, so as a human being, are you also one of the causes of trouble in this world? The story of the spear and the shield, Yoshida said that he has mastered the essence. It's not me that's wrong, it's the whole world, Takahashi, who was transformed into a god, said as he picked up the apple beside him and threw it away. Takahashi Makoto, is there that apple-eating god of death behind you? What about your little notebook? And this has nothing to do with it at all. It's too much trouble to complain about them all. Yoshida can't bear it anymore. He paused, his face changed to a sinister smile, and he was ready to attack. Speaking of which, Chen, I have an unexpected surprise for you. Surprise? My beloved cat, do you think you already have it? Is it really the little sea otters? Speaking of the child's name. Because he saw the group of people at the door, Takahashi Makoto couldn't speak anymore. The combination of 3 men and 2 women is not a team of assistants or a team of cartoonists that appear from time to time, but which Rina and her teammates. Standing in the center with a worried look on her face is the witch Rina, The one wearing a black dress and smiling with squinting eyes is the butler Sabas-chan. The ghostly face wearing glasses is naturally a slime that has evolved to its full body. By the way, who is the man over there who looks like Brother Chang, and the girl who looks like a fool? Hey, Takahashi Makoto turned his head away in displeasure and stared at Yoshida. My beloved cat, take advantage of my weakness to summon my teammates to clear the copy of crazy mangaist Phoenix Inkyushin. This is so despicable. Where is your pride as a knight? Where is your shame as an editor? Let's not talk about chivalry for now. By the way, Chang, you are admitted to the hospital. Tell your wife, what does this kind of thing have to do with the editor's shame? While Yoshida was complaining in his heart, he had a look on his face that was watching a show, which made Takahashi Makoto even more angry. Humph. This time I just stopped by to see you because Rina came back to record. It's just a slime at the full body level. Being arrogant and so on is completely ruining the atmosphere, bastard. Makoto-kun. Rina grabbed Takahashi Makoto's arm tightly with both hands, her eyes filled with mist. I'm sorry, I didn't know you. Although he can ignore the Tsundere attack of the perfect slime, but facing the witch Rina, especially the witch who is crying and will lose all her magic power when she sheds tears, Takahashi Makoto cannot fight at all. Should it be said that the physique of the time traveler is due to the influence of the golden finger? Or is it that Takahashi Makoto's resilience has escaped the category of human beings? At the end of the Millennium Kyoto chapter of Slicker, Makoto Takahashi was discharged from the hospital. By the way, due to the appearance of the witch Rina, Dark Noble Phantasm, Rina's hell cuisine appears in the surface world again. Therefore, Makoto Takahashi's hospitalization time was once again extended by 1 month. Now that you're discharged from the hospital, you should be happy. Why do you act like the whole world has offended you? Looking at the somewhat decadent Makoto Takahashi, Yoshida didn't understand. It can't be because of Rina-chan. Hey. What kind of wound has just healed? It is not suitable to do strenuous exercise. How can a profession like a dragon knight be understood by ordinary people like you, Makoto Takahashi, whose resentment has surpassed the evil in this world, looked at the gossip on Yoshida's face. Smile, anger value reached full value. Because Takahashi Makoto was injured, he couldn't do the embarrassing things. But by the time Makoto Takahashi fully recovered, Rina was already abroad and continuing her training as a witch. Therefore, although he has successfully changed his profession to a housewife, Makoto Takahashi, who still maintains his profession as a magician, seems to be stepping into the rhythm of a magician. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 185. Using the excuse of visiting and congratulating Makoto Takahashi on his discharge from the hospital, the little sea otter actually just wants to escape the endless work at home as a cartoonist and the persecution of the sinister editor Yoshida. Recently, the little sea otter has become a frequent visitor to Makoto Takahashi's house. At the beginning, Yoshida patiently came to Takahashi Makoto's house to complete the mission Lost Little Sea Otter. However, as time passed, Yoshida became bored with this mission, so he changed the direction of the mission. Makoto Takahashi used his seriousness in drawing comics as an example and began to implement a new round of brainwashing work on the little sea otter. He wanted to take the opportunity to eliminate the laziness of the little sea otter and plan to solve the problem from the root. Yoshida brainwashed and educated the little sea otter at Makoto Takahashi's home. Makoto Takahashi led many assistants to draw comics seriously. After receiving Makoto Takahashi's manga manuscripts, Yoshida took the little sea otter home for a new round of training, education. In short, after Makoto Takahashi was discharged from the hospital, this kind of thing that happened every week has become an endless cycle. By the way, apart from Yoshida's brainwashing education, the little sea otter has mastered many things. For example, when Yoshida was reading the manga manuscript, he would ask Makoto Takahashi for advice on how to practice skills after changing his job to become a married woman, or the correct way to effectively increase the favorability and intimacy of Miss Aoki Hong. Kind of. Speaking of my beloved cat, based on the previous points, I think I can now completely defeat the King of Black Flame, right? Makoto Takahashi, who was drawing comics, suddenly stopped painting and faced the brainwashing process in progress. Yoshida suddenly asked, as for the other people, they are just ants. Points. Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi with a confused face, frowned and started a powerful calculation, trying to search for the keyword points in his mind. Hey, it's only been a few years, and that blank look on his face really means he doesn't remember it at all? Huh. Human beings are such a sad existence, Makoto Takahashi said unhappily. He curled his lips and showed a devilish smile on his face. My beloved cat, since you can't remember it, forget it, but as a friendly reminder, I will go to the editorial office tomorrow to discuss it with the commander. The promise. I am looking forward to this day. The points, the King of Black Flame, is a feast for the future king. After thinking hard, Yoshida finally recalled the previous event. Speaking of Yoshida-kun, was it really you who he and Makoto Takahashi invited to participate? Although there were not many people invited at the beginning, just a few cartoonists, as Shonen Jump has continued to inject new blood in the past few years, more and more new cartoonists have joined this event. Ever since Makoto Takahashi serialized 3 comics at the same time, he has never had the intention to pay attention to this issue. As for Yoshida, because of a cute little sea otter and a cartoonist with Shuyunibu, the two of them have limited Yoshida. The experience was exhausted, so naturally I didn't pay attention to this issue. So now Takahashi Makoto's abrupt question naturally left Yoshida speechless. Of course, the editor-in-chief remembered this and specially arranged for the technical statisticians of the editorial department to record the data. The reason for doing this is because at that time, Makoto Takahashi once put forward a condition in private, hoping that the editor-in-chief would give absolute support to complete one thing, something related to comics. Because it was a private agreement, not even Yoshida knew about it. Cheng, what kind of agreement do you have with the editor-in-chief? Yoshida had an ominous premonition. According to Takahashi Makoto's character, things that are beyond common sense can only be regarded as trivial matters. If he is not careful, he might be called Shonen Jump Weekly magazine will be on the road to self-destruction. Among the many participants, be the first to get 20,000 points, Makoto Takahashi showed a hint of expectation on his face. The content of the agreement, let you see the birth of the so-called miracle that subverts the world. Drink ha. Things, are definitely going to get very bad. 20,000 points sounds like a very high number. According to the previous rules, 1 point will be awarded for confirming the serialization, 3 points for starting the serialization, 2 points for obtaining the masthead color page, and the top 20 votes received in the reader survey during the serialization period. 1 to 20 points will be awarded according to the ranking, 20 points will be awarded for comics that are decided to be animated, and 2 additional points will be awarded for each single book whose sales exceed 500,000 copies. But for Makoto Takahashi, who is serializing 3 comics at the same time, it is not very difficult. Not to mention the comics that have been completed before, just counting the last 10 consecutive number 1 chapters of Steel alone, it contributed 200 points. Really? It seems that the editorial department will be very lively tomorrow. After listening to Yoshida's narration, the editor-in-chief did not give an answer. Instead, he crossed his hands and clasped his chin, looking solemn and lost in thought. Looking at the solemn expression of the editor-in-chief, Yoshida was confused. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. The editor-in-chief said that the next day would be very lively. At first, Yoshida thought that the editor-in-chief also had a headache over a certain Chuyunibu cartoonist, but when he saw Makoto Takahashi and his new wife Eiji entering the editorial office together, he understood the trouble. The level has been raised to a new level. New wife-kun? Why are you here? Yojiro looked at new wife Eiji with a surprised look on his face. I never heard that you were coming. Aiken, did you and Eiji Nazuma come together? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi, his head full of black lines. Although he didn't find out from the editor-in-chief yesterday what Makoto Takahashi had agreed to, but seeing Eiji Nazuma coming together, Yoshida subconsciously thought that Eiji Nazuma was invited by Makoto Takahashi. My cat, you are wrong this time. Makoto Takahashi turned his head and looked at Eiji Nazuma, with a strange smile on his face. Although the content of the agreement is related to the King of Black Flame, but, since the unexpected encounter with fate can happen here, then all this is indeed the choice of Steins Gate. Pucci, my cat. Because of Makoto Takahashi's address to Yoshida, many people in the editorial department covered their mouths and laughed. Although there have always been rumors about Makoto Takahashi's second-year junior high school, many editors who have just entered the editorial department saw such a situation for the first time and couldn't help laughing. Laugh, laugh hard. What will happen later will definitely make you laugh. Yoshida's mouth twitched, and he looked helplessly at his colleagues who were laughing secretly. Editor-in-chief, according to the previous agreement, I am now a popular cartoonist of Shonen Jump. I have the right to cut a comic in half, right? Nazuma Eiji did not say what comic he wanted to cut in half. Commander-in-Chief, according to the previous agreement, the points have reached 20,000, so I also got the right to absolutely support something related to comics, right? Similarly, Takahashi Makoto did not say what the editor-in-chief wanted to support specifically. You called to make an appointment to see me before, as expected, you just want to talk about this. The editor-in-chief, with a solemn expression, raised his head and looked at the two cartoonists in front of him. Since it is an agreement, then completed according to the agreed content. But the cartoonist named King of Black Flame, Nazuma Eiji, obtained the right to cut a comic in half according to the previous agreement. This shocked the editors in the entire editorial department. Takahashi Makoto, a cartoonist named Phoenix Court Kyoma, obtained the right to absolutely support the editor-in-chief according to the previous agreement and completed something related to comics. This made the editors in the entire editorial department speechless. This dramatic development, just as Yoshida, who had transformed into a prophet, had predicted, made the people in the editorial department unable to laugh. But, we need to discuss this in detail. After thinking for a moment, the editor-in-chief called the editors-in-chief of the two problematic cartoonists and took the two cartoonists to the meeting room next door. Yojiro. Yoshida. You come too. Which comic do you think Nazuma Eiji will cut off? Compared to Nazuma-kun, I want to know what Takahashi Makoto wants to do. Hey, this kind of thing should be impossible, right? Cartoonists have the right to cut off comics? What a joke. What will happen if other cartoonists know about it? Rather than worrying about this, I am more worried about the agreement that cartoonist Takahashi Makoto said. Could it be that he wants to get more serialization rights? Yoshida-kun said before that Takahashi Makoto still has a lot of comic manuscripts in his hands that have not been submitted for serialization. They are all very interesting comics. Humph. That's just Yoshida showing off. Letting a cartoonist serialize 3 comics at the same time is already the limit. How can he be given the right to serialize new ones? After watching the 5 people enter the meeting room, the editorial department immediately murmured in discussion. Although they really wanted to know the specific content, the editors in the editorial department did not dare to eavesdrop. This time, it seemed that because of the importance of the matter, the 5 people were still discussing in the conference room until the end of the get-off workday, which made the curious editors leave the editorial department with a tangled mood. The sky had darkened, and Yoshida, who walked out of the Uesha building, showed a helpless smile on his face, and Yujiro on the side also had a helpless expression on his face. However, the two editors looked at the two cartoonists who were talking, and their previous worries were relieved a lot. The result of the previous discussion was that Makoto Takahashi and Eiji Nizuma seemed to have a tacit understanding. Which comic Eiji Nizuma wanted to cut off and what Makoto Takahashi wanted to do, neither of them revealed their true thoughts. However, the editor-in-chief proposed that only one of them could fulfill the agreement between the two, so. Humph. The commander-in-chief is really cunning. He actually thought of letting us kill each other and taking the opportunity to stop my hegemony of Howin Kyoma. Takahashi Makoto was a little unhappy with the editor-in-chief's proposal, but this seemed to be a very good opportunity to destroy the Black Flame King in one fell swoop. But, the commander-in-chief is too naive. Even if you are the Black Flame King, you can't stop my hegemony. Because I am a crazy cartoonist, Howin Kyoma God. Ha 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 ha. Teacher Howin, I will never admit defeat, Nizuma Eiji confidently gave his answer to Takahashi Makoto, who was in a state of second-year laughter. But in the same way, Nizuma Eiji showed a curious look on his face. Speaking of which, Mr. Howin, what is the agreement between you and the editor-in-chief? That is my lifelong wish. Takahashi Makoto stopped laughing and looked at Nizuma Eiji solemnly. King of Black Flame, join the 7 warlords of the sea formed by my lord Howin Kyoma, and lead the existence called miracle to this world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 186. Although Fengguangai Yuan Kuma and the King of Black Flame had teamed up temporarily and cleared the editorial department copy, the editor-in-chief, as the final boss, was not successfully pushed down by Takahashi Makoto and Nizuma Eiji due to his strength, and survived tenaciously. What was the result of the negotiation? Seeing the editor-in-chief's face more gloomy than usual, many editors in the editorial department had roughly understood it in their hearts. Therefore, when Yoshida and Yujiro came to the editorial department, they were greeted by various complicated eyes. Because the people they usually come into contact with are all at the level of problem makers or trouble-forging machines, Yoshida and Yujiro's psychological tolerance has broken through the second stage of the human gene lock, but facing the complicated eyes of many colleagues such as resentment and grievance, the two still feel a little overwhelmed. Yoshida and Yujiro's editing team vs many editors in the editorial department, and the two ended up running away. Ah, the cafe, it's really a place I miss. Yoshida, who followed Yujiro into the cafe, suddenly showed an inexplicable sigh on his face, which made Yujiro beside him speechless. Is it really like this? It's just an ordinary cafe. Is it necessary to sigh in this tone that you haven't been to in several lifetimes? Don't look at me with that look. Yoshida naturally noticed Yujiro's weird eyes, raised the coffee on the table and took a sip, and said helplessly, thanks to Cheng, the Chuyunibu cartoonist, as long as we walk with him, all the cafes on the street will refuse us entry. Chuyunibu and the like, just thinking about it makes me angry. Ah, let's not talk about this. The more I talk, the more irritated I am. Oh, by the way, Yujiro, did Nizuma-kun tell you which comic he wants to cut off? No, Yujiro is about to be broken by these colleagues. Everyone is worried that the comics of the cartoonists they are responsible for will be cut by Eiji Nizuma. Did Yoshida, who was thought to be a teammate, betray him now? Looking at Yoshida's suspicious eyes, Yujiro smiled bitterly. I really don't know, because it happened too suddenly, so I haven't had time to ask Nizuma-kun, let alone me. What is Takahashi Makoto going to do? Yoshida also showed the same expression, and the synchronization rate with Yujiro instantly reached the highest. He sighed in disappointment and lay on the table helplessly. I want to know too. And I need the absolute support of the editor-in-chief, although Makoto didn't say it no matter how I asked. I think something bad will happen. Huh? Really? As an editor, you don't know, Yujiro was surprised and nodded in agreement. I feel the same way. Although Nizuma-kun usually speaks a little weird and behaves too willfully, at least all his words and deeds are still within the scope of common sense, but Takahashi Makoto, definitely not a normal human being, right? Although Yujiro didn't finish his words, Yashida already knew. Yashida looked a little embarrassed. Although what Yujiro said was indeed true, but, has the cruelty of Takahashi Makoto, a Chuyuni, reached the point where everyone knows it? As the subject of discussion, Takahashi Makoto was at home, holding an emergency combat meeting and making a pre-war declaration as usual. Gentlemen, now we have reached the age of monsters, the most exciting moment, and our long-cherished wish will finally come true. Takahashi Makoto slammed the table fiercely, gathering the eyes of the assistants. This was called the roar of the head of state, not the classic combo of bluster plus self-suggestion. In this operation, the Black Flame King must be annihilated in one fell swoop. Our hegemony of unifying the world will be recorded in the annals of history. As the relatives and followers of my Phoenix Court Kama, you will also be famous for thousands of years. It was such an exciting declaration, but because of the numerous tasks, the assistants just raised their heads to look at Takahashi Makoto, who was in an excited state, and then continued to work. By the way, wouldn't it be enough for a certain Chuyunibu to be hospitalized? As expected, because there was no nurse like Nanase in the hospital, all the energy that could not be vented was used to complete the drawings. The amazing number even made Ueno Aoi, who had long been accustomed to Takahashi Makoto's speed in completing drawings, change color. Everyone was busy working in front of the thick drawings. Who would have the heart to listen to the speechless pre-war declaration? So, Takahashi Makoto's so-called pre-war declaration undoubtedly achieved a huge failure. Humph. Takahashi Makoto, who was completely ignored, was silent for a moment, and then sneered, as expected. Is this the lonely fate of being a king? Unable to be understood, unrecognized, standing independently at the top of the world. Xiao Cheng, please don't interfere with our work, Ueno Aoi finally spoke, but her tone didn't sound friendly enough. This kind of reprimanding tone was a blasphemy to the king. Aiken, you should take a good rest for a while. The combo from Ding Ding made Takahashi Makoto's darkness increase its attack and defense by one level again. After all, there are so many completed comics. Even if I don't draw comics for 2 or 3 months, it's okay. If you are free, help us finish the rest of the work. Teacher Feng Guangai Yuan. Jinghe River, who was deeply trusted by Takahashi Makoto, also used a fierce attack called Rebellion at the critical moment. Completing the drawings requires a quiet environment. It's me. I made a mistake. I didn't expect that the organization had bribed all the believers and followers around me. Makoto Takahashi, who was repeatedly implied to be a troublemaker, took out his cell phone from his white coat to relieve the mental blow, and made a call with a sad and frustrated face. Yes, it seems that the only one who still has loyalty is Mayuri, who has just joined the association. Mayuri also hopes that Phoenix Court can be quieter, otherwise the draft cannot be completed. Mayuri opened her innocent big eyes, rolled her eyeballs, looked at Makoto Takahashi's depressed expression, tilted her head, and subconsciously added the reason a catchphrase learned for someone's bad taste, Dudu, Dujalu. It's how Winkuma. And the cuteness of Dujalu has been burned out by you, Mayuri. After Takahashi Makoto weakly performed a series of complaints, he continued the previous call. Even Mayuri has been controlled by the organization. According to the previous emergency operations, I will contact you in 3 days. If you don't receive my call in 3 days, please tell the witch who signed a contract with me to go to the Ice and Fire Island to find a golden-haired uncle and slaughter all the humans in the world to bury Hao Winkuma. El Saikongru. Speaking of the Ice and Fire Island and the golden-haired uncle, it seems that some strange things have mixed in. Even if it is a full-level hero magic god, after being surrounded by a group of footmen, he still can't escape the fate of being killed. Araragi, who was tied to a chair and thrown out of the door, it should be Takahashi Makoto. Looking at the closed door, he tried to summon his most loyal servant, the demon dog Ding-chun. Ding-chun, come to me, come to my phoenix inner Kyoma, remove the restrictions on you, open the hidden seal, and restore your true form as the world-destroying demon dog. This is Yachin Mumenjai, who had just finished discussing with the editor, and the sea urchin-headed editor Hattori, saw the bound Takahashi Makoto as soon as they opened the door, and their heads were full of black lines. Chuyuni Makoto, was he thrown out again? Sure enough, this rhetoric, and, what's the matter with this habitual tone? Three guys over there, come and unseal me, so I will fulfill one wish for each of you. Otherwise, after 3 rounds, when the time of the Sword of Light sealing is over, you will be taken away by the lowly of the Goddess of Death. Is this the tone of asking for help? It's a bit too arrogant, isn't it? Mr. Hattori, this is the end of the comic draft for this episode. I will try to finish the next comic draft in advance. The yellow-haired man with glasses rubbed his tired face and said so apologetically, completely ignoring the struggling Chuyunibu over there. Don't force yourself too much, like Yachin Mumenjai, he didn't care about a self-inflicted Chuyunibu at all. The sea urchin-headed Hattori looked at the depressed yellow-haired man with glasses and kindly reminded him, what happens in reality has nothing to do with comics. Comics are just comics after all. As cartoonists, don't care about other things, just draw good comics. But the yellow-haired man with glasses looked a little ugly, and he subconsciously wanted to refute, but at this moment, his good friend Landai activated the super speed first strike skill. That's right, Akito, we are just cartoonists, understanding what his good friend is confused about and what his good friend is worried about. Landai has already mastered the skill of telepathy with his friends. Oh my, it seems like a lot of interesting things have happened during this period of time. Of course, only Takahashi Makoto, who was tied up and thrown out of the door by his assistants, could speak in this tone to show off his presence. Because the comics have influenced the world, are you afraid? Humph. Those who are qualified to shoot are those who are prepared to be shot. You are so petty, you are really petty. After staring at each other in silence, the four fell into a brief silence, and then the older ill-headed Hattori took the lead in breaking the deadlock, directly substituting the lines of Lelich. Should I say that he is worthy of being the original author? Ahem, Takahashi Makoto, I refuse. Takahashi Makoto shook his head and refused before Hattori finished speaking. In terms of equivalent exchange, since you have unsealed me, of course I will help you, but, eel-headed, you seem to have misunderstood something? Do you think I am a so-called hero who repays kindness? Tisk tisk tisk, unfortunately, I am the mad dark devil, Hao Winkuma. I haven't said anything yet, and the name of eel-headed is, me. Hattori looked at Takahashi Makoto with a depressed look, sighed helplessly, and smiled bitterly. After saying goodbye to Iyajo Mumenjai, he was ready to leave. Wait a minute. Since you ask sincerely, I can help you once. Takahashi Makoto paused for a moment, then showed an expectant smile on his face. Just treat it as an entertainment program before the war, as the source of chaos, let you see a world full of my Phoenix Court Kuma's wool. Ha ha ha. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 187. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. PCP is a comic that reads as a crime writing prank. Different from the traditional Wangdao comics, in this comic, the 3 people on the protagonist's side commit crimes known as pranks in a way that is not noticed by others, because the plot is very easy to be imitated, and there are many common. The prank makes this comic very popular among children and adults. However, recently, A bank vault was robbed, and the thief left a note inside the vault. The way he committed the crime was very similar to the content described in the comic PCP, so in order to increase the sense of existence, in order to cooperate with the TV station that is frantically boosting ratings, experts and professors appeared in large numbers and began to criticize this comic continuously. The two-person team of Akin Mumenjai, Landai is responsible for the painting, has not been greatly affected, but as the original author, Mr. Huang Mao Glasses, because of these comments, fell into a tangled state, which has recently led to the results of this comic, are appalling. What is the result just like this? After listening to the account of the yellow-haired glasses man, Takahashi Makoto showed a disappointed expression. Ugh. It's a waste of my time to conquer the Grand Line. I thought some mysterious big event happened, and I thought I needed the famous detective Takahashi season to tell me, it turned out to be just this kind of thing. To this extent, wait a minute. Speaking of which, Hattori, the sea urchin head who planned to leave, was curious about how Makoto Takahashi would help a Jumumenha, so even in the face of the brutal Chuyuni Denpa, he decided to stay. Come down. Listening to Takahashi Makoto's nonchalant tone, Hattori pondered for a moment, then seemed to think of the original Higurashi, which seemed to be even more brutal than the recent PCP. Takahashi Makoto's manga Higurashi seemed to be even better than the current PCP, but I remember that during that time, you didn't seem to be affected at all. So, this is the root of the gap in temperament. How can the crazy cartoonist Phoenix Academy Jujhen be comparable to the yellow-haired glasses guy? The merciless ridicule made the yellow-haired glasses guy on the side bow his head. He smiled wryly, and Landai and editor Hattori, who were standing beside him, looked a little unnatural. But Makoto Takahashi would not stop because of this, and continued to use taunts to increase damage. Cartoonists only need to draw good comics. What do you want yourselves to be? A god who saves the world, or a demon who tempts the world? Humph. Ignorant it is because of such delusions that human beings become so weak and vulnerable. Although what Makoto Takahashi said is indeed true, but, would it be fatal to be a little more tactful? But I tried to explain something, but unfortunately, the yellow-haired glasses man's mind was in chaos now, and he was unable to communicate normally. He hesitated for a long time, but he still couldn't say a normal word. He picked up the newspaper next to him and handed it to Takahashi Cheng. A hint of helplessness flashed in the yellow-haired glasses man's eyes. Anyway, Cheng, take a look at this first. The reports in the newspapers were all criticizing PCP for various things such as not teaching people to learn well and inciting minors to commit crimes. Makoto Takahashi was speechless for a while. What depresses Takahashi Makoto the most is that the report also mentioned that the recent comics of cartoonist Hohoin Kuma involve too many stories about monsters, insinuating that these monster comics spread feudal superstition and are anti-scientific. Mean. You have to understand clearly, whether you are named a Jumumenha or the crazy cartoonist Kohoin Kuma, they are just cartoonists. All they have to do is draw cartoons. Teaching and educating people is the job of a teacher is to guide confused and ignorant humans. It is the responsibility of the leader. When did the profession of cartoonist evolve into a sage that is related to the life and death of mankind? Makoto Takahashi said after casually scanning the relevant reports. It was filled with inexplicable anger, and even the three people on the side felt that something was wrong. The plot of the comic is not exciting enough and the characters have problems. This is the failure of the cartoonist. There is nothing good to say. But the existence of the so-called expert educator, standing on this inexplicable righteousness, attributes all the things that he has not done well and the mistakes he has made to other aspects, and makes groundless accusations. This approach, this is the source of Makoto Takahashi's anger. After watching One Piece, how many people will choose to run away from home, buy a boat and run to the sea to become pirates, looking for the legendary treasure One Piece? After Detective Conan, How many people will choose means that normal humans cannot construct to commit crimes and killings? Speaking of humans who choose to become pirates, how many of them have the funds to buy a small boat that can sail across the sea? And those criminals, instead of using such complicated and meticulous killing methods, it is better to use a white knife to go in and a red knife to go out. On the contrary, many people, after watching those cartoons about sheep monsters, wolf monsters, bear monsters, and bald monsters that have become spirits, can speak human words, master various black technologies, and possess immortality, have been beaten and burned. Friends, a comparison test on the hardness of a frying pan and a head or something, in terms of so-called influence and cruelty, the two are not at the same level at all. Choosing a career as a pirate, or committing murder, these hints formed through comics and animations do have a great impact on humans who have immature minds. However, in reality, compared to hanging, setting fire to friends, frying pans, and comparative tests on the hardness of the head and so on, the difficulty of implementing these actions is completely the difference between the Big Pineapple novice mode and the hell difficulty. What's more, human beings, selfish creatures, always like and have the habit of blaming their own mistakes on others. It is obvious that they are not doing well enough, but they never look for the reasons from themselves and blame everything on those around them. People, things happening around us. Human beings always like to blame the things they have done badly and wrongly on other things under the excuse of so-called justice and righteousness. They never consider their own faults and mistakes. What is wrong is not oneself. What is wrong is all existence except oneself. What is wrong is the whole world. The existence called human beings are just hopeless Chuyunibu after all. According to Grandpa Yu's words, if you want to accuse someone, why bother? Cheng, what are you angry about? Seeing Takahashi Cheng's expression becoming more and more distorted, the duo named Ajumumenha and the sea urchin-headed Hattori felt a little inexplicable chill, and the three of them looked at each other. There is always an ominous premonition lingering in my heart. Huh. This world is falling. What's going on with this sudden mockery of human beings? Existences called humans are hopelessly stupid. The problem has not been solved. The yellow-haired glasses guy is still confused. At the same time, he did not forget to pass the news to his good friend Landai. It is indeed a wrong decision to choose to seek help from Takahashi Makoto, who has a Chuyunibu. Yellow-haired glasses man, is it actually not very difficult to solve this problem? Picking up Shounen Junk on the table, a strange light flashed in Makoto Takahashi's eyes. Since the world has become corrupted and fallen into this level, then let everything return to chaos and rebuild this world again. Let the resentment and hatred in your heart, the bullying and oppression you have suffered during this period, and the mood of unwillingness and despair be named PCP. The comics will be constructed into a dark Bible, and become the most dark and evil existence in the comics world. No, let's become the darkest and evil existence in the entire world. If you do this, you will definitely be banned by the entire comic industry. Regarding Takahashi Makoto's friendly proposal, both Ajumumenha and Uzumaki Hattori shook their heads in sync with each other, decisively rejecting it. At the same time, the three of them also confirmed again that it was definitely a wrong choice to talk to Takahashi Makoto to solve the comics problem. Hey! Don't you even have the courage to do this? Do you still want to become a god in the new world? Humph! Stop laughing so hard. I've never thought of it this way. The three of them complained in unison, making Takahashi Makoto look surprised. When did the good gay group develop into a threesome? Could it be that, as a crazy cartoonist, I can no longer keep up with the times? Of course, you have another choice. Makoto Takahashi's insidious voice sounded again, like a devil tempting people to commit crimes. After the new issue of Shounen Jump was released, Makoto Takahashi opened the manga PCP by Ajumumenha with great anticipation. Compared with Makoto Takahashi's expectant look, Yoshida, as the editor, looked at Makoto Takahashi with a grimace, as if I have something important to discuss with you. Hey. I actually chose this way of evolution. After quickly flipping through PCP, Makoto Takahashi threw the comic aside. The look of anticipation on his face had disappeared, replaced by a deep regret. Color. My beloved is the cat. This combination of good friends seems to be doing very well, right? Of course, the content of their words, although everyone on the protagonist's side is almost making soy sauce, it is just the story of the imitator. Mentioning this, Yoshida couldn't help showing a look of amazement on his face, but, is it worthy of being said that he is able to reverse the unfavorable public opinions and create interesting content at the same time? I didn't choose to change my job to the dark attribute, nor did I choose to change my job to the virgin attribute. Instead, I kept the previous inherent attributes and solved the problem from the root. Although his tone was full of dissatisfaction, Takahashi Makoto was not stingy. My own praise, it's true. Ajuma Menha, this interesting group, performed quite well in this sideshow. Speaking of Cheng, Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi, who seemed to be in a good mood. After pondering for a long time, he finally couldn't help it anymore. Moxie Moxie, the king of Black Flame. This is the demon king of healing love, His Majesty the Phoenix Academy. Just by simply entering the call mode, Yoshida's long-charged killing move was empty. Takahashi Makoto glanced at Yoshida and didn't say anything. Instead, he sent an invitation to form a team to his new wife AG on the phone with great anticipation. Teju once said, to evade the internal situation, you must first secure the external situation, so you know yet. That's true, that's right. Before we start a civil war, let's expel those who have nothing to do with it. By the way, what are you doing? It sounds a bit. Yoshida watched Makoto Takahashi end the call and looked at Makoto Takahashi suspiciously. That. Takahashi Makoto pondered for a moment, raised his head, and showed a hearty smile on his face. Actually, it's nothing, just invite the Black Flame King to expel irrelevant personnel before the civil war begins. Can we communicate in a normal way? Yoshida couldn't help rolling his eyes. By the way, Cheng, what exactly did you agree with the editor before? Nothing, just want the monster era to dominate the entire Shonen Jump. Takahashi Makoto showed an expectant smile on his face. Just want the people of this world to understand a truth, no regrets in entering the East in this life, and wish to be born in Gensokyo in the next life. A good event that falls from the sky. Cool mobile phones are waiting for you. Follow the official account of Kidian/Chinese website, add friends on WeChat, add official account, enter Dread, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Follow the Dread WeChat official account now. Don't complain about certain content, as long as you understand it in your heart. This world is hee. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 188. After all, paper can't stop the fire. The fact that Takahashi Makoto and Eiji Niizuma went to brush the copy of the editorial department was still found out by many cartoonists. Because an editor named Yujiro accidentally leaked this news to brother Fukuda, well, the cartoonists who were dragged into the so-called Fukuda group by Fukuda all got wind of the news and learned that the new wife AG had obtained the right to cut comics in half. As for Makoto Takahashi, except for the yellow-haired glasses man who was a little worried, the other cartoonists, including Landai, didn't pay too much attention to this matter. Brother Fukuda issued a summons to all the cartoonists and asked them to come to his studio at 6 o'clock in the evening for discussions. I heard from Mr. Yoshida that Mr. Phoenix Academy God and Mr. Niizuma went to the editorial office to discuss with the editor-in-chief. The five of them discussed it from the afternoon to the evening. Mr. Yoshida said that Mr. Niizuma had indeed obtained the right to cut the manga in half. Everyone gathered around sitting together in a circle. The little sea otter took out a notebook with sea otter on the cover from his pocket, and began to show off exclusive information in front of Miss Kang Shuhong and everyone. As for the god of the Phoenix Academy, Lord here, Mr. Yoshida said that until now, he still hasn't figured out what Kami-sama wants to do because Kami-sama of the Phoenix Academy kicked Yoshida and Yujiro out of the conference room while discussing with the editor-in-chief and Nyaizuma-sensei, and what happened afterwards. I didn't reveal any information, I just learned that the teacher from Phoenix Academy has obtained this right. Ignore Aiken's side. The most important issue now is to figure out the manga that Shinzuma-kun wants to cut in half. Brother Fukuda made a decisive speech, looked at his companions around him, and complained with an unhappy look on his face. But I really didn't expect that such a request could be agreed to. I really don't understand what the editor-in-chief thinks. But I don't think that just because the manga ranks first, you can get the right to have other people's manga. A manga artist named Taka Hamashoyo, who used to be a Jumumenha's assistant, has recently published manga depicting the story of prosecutors and detectives. Three Shoulders of Justice was serialized on Shonen Jump. After learning that Eiji Nyaizuma had obtained the rights to cut the manga in half, he felt a little dissatisfied, and the comics you previously speculated would be cut in half are just speculations after all. You haven't received confirmation from Mr. Shinzuma, right? It's just a waste of time to make unwarranted speculations here. It's better to go directly to Shinzuma-kun and ask for clarification. Iwai's Aiko's face was a little gloomy, and she turned on the roar mode, directly pointing out the key points of the problem, which made all the cartoonists around her we are stuck in surprise mode. It's not surprising that Iwai's Aiko is like this, because among the comics that were previously speculated to be cut in half, the comics she collaborated with Eiji Nyaizuma seemed to have the highest possibility of being cut in half. In addition, this comic was originally used to attack a Jumumenha, but because Iwai's Aiko herself was incompetent, she was tortured and killed by PCP for a long time. The somewhat anxious Iwai's Aiko faced the pressure that may have been cut in half finally broke out. The group of people went directly from Brother Fukuda's studio to the studio of Eiji Shinzuma. Landai saw that his good friend had a solemn expression on his face from before, and couldn't help but feel a little curious. But when he was about to speak, everyone had already arrived at the home of his new wife Eiji. Hey, it seems that the number of people has completely reached the standard value. Makoto Takahashi, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, raised the wine glass in his hand to the people who entered the new wife Eiji's home, tilted his head and counted the number of people. His face a cheerful devilish smile appeared on his face. The yellow-haired glasses gentleman commented, "All of you followers who have come here specially after feeling the fierce call of our Phoenix courtyard, do you want to have a drink first? Hey, Aiken, are you here too? Just drink or something." Brother Fusion said hello, then declined the invitation to join the banquet and went straight to the topic. "Although Aiken, you are the party involved, you also know that the new wife you have the right to cut the comic in half, but you don't know which comic will be cut in half, right? So you come here, just like us, you want to know which comic will be cut in half. Want to have a drink?" Shaking the wine glass in his hand, Takahashi Makoto once again invited everyone to a banquet. Unfortunately, at this time, everyone who was too worried had no intention of attending the banquet, and they all shook their heads silently and refused. Takahashi Makoto finished the wine in his hand and poured a glass slowly. There was a hint of displeasure on his face, and he complained without any scruples, "I said this right from the beginning, wait, it's such a boring existence. Black Flame, King, do you want a drink?" "Hi. Of course I want to say it." Contrary to everyone's expectations, Nyaizuma Eiji jumped down from the chair and sat face to face with Takahashi Makoto. "But I only drink juice or milk, not alcohol." "Hey. What a childish choice. Of course you have to drink at a banquet." Makoto Takahashi complained dissatisfied, turned to the cartoonists behind him, and his eyes fell on the little sea otter. "Little sea otter, do you want to come over for a drink?" "Of course." Little sea otter broke out of laziness and was about to sit down and drink. However, after Miss Kang Shuhong coughed in a low voice, she decisively chose another branch option. Of course I won't drink." Phoenix, Lord Dean, actually Hey. After changing jobs, I have become such a cowardly existence. Makoto Takahashi complained, raising his wine glass to clink glasses with his new wife Eiji. Speaking of which, before the war comes, it feels like having a drink with the so-called final enemy. It's really quite good. That's indeed what you said. Nyaizuma Eiji raised his head and drank the juice in one gulp, his eyes flashed with light, and his tone was full of expectation. Teacher Phoenix Academy, your previous proposal was really interesting. To be honest, I'm looking forward to seeing such a spectacular scene. Tisk, 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 no, if you deliberately release water or something, you will definitely be dragged out by the commander, shot, and whipped. Makoto Takahashi's conversation with Eiji Nyaizuma directly caused the cartoonists on the side to fall into deeper confusion. I can't understand the content of the exchange between the two at all. Although it is a civil war, judging from the results, before you can make a perfect exit, you must give a wonderful performance. King of Black Flame, don't you think that after doing this, the fashion value and morale value will be reduced? Will it break through the sky? Say it in agreement. That's really cool to say. Nyaizuma Eiji's face suddenly became serious, and his eyes showed a strong light of confidence, but even so, I will not give up easily. So Teacher Phoenix Academy, I wanted to complete such a wonderful performance, one must. That's right. It seems that telling you this first is indeed the right choice. Makoto Takahashi drank the wine in his glass in one gulp, then turned to look at the stunned cartoonists aside, a look on his face. He showed a weird smile. Then the next question is you. Chen, why are you here? The man with yellow-haired glasses, whose ominous premonition was getting stronger and stronger, pushed up his glasses with a puzzled look on his face. Of all the cartoonists present, the one who is least worried about cartoons, you should be the one who was cut in half, right? The performance you just mentioned was. It's not time to tell you about the performance or anything. After Makoto Takahashi pondered for a moment, he looked up at the cartoonists with a devilish smile on his face. You guys come this time, I want to know which comic the Black Flame King decided to cut in half, right? Although I really want to know, when I see your look of please me, please beg my expression quickly, and then I didn't want to ask any more. The cartoonists, who fell into full screen silence, synchronized their thoughts instantly, and the degree of compatibility reached an outrageous level. King of Black Flame, can I say something? After turning around to ask for the consent of his new wife Eiji, Takahashi Makoto shook his head. Forget it, let you resolve your own affairs. As for me, here, maybe you can pass this trial and choose a suitable servant. The manga that is going to be cut in half is. Eiji Nyaizuma sat back at the drawing table, paused deliberately, picked up a drawing on the table, with an expectant look on his face. It's Crow. Huh. After hearing this answer, all the cartoonists fell into a state of surprise and transformed into a passerby NPC in a certain game with an exclamation mark on their head and giving away money and experience. But if you want to cut off Crow in half, there are conditions. Nyaizuma Eiji turned around and looked at the cartoonists, and announced the content of the previous agreement with the editor-in-chief. Before it is cut in half, win the #1 title for 10 consecutive weeks. First, it will take another 10 weeks to complete the entire comic. This is the agreement I made with the editor before, and the editor agreed to this condition. Although the plan of Phoenix Academy teacher is very interesting, I still want to cut Crow in half. That's right. But if you want to complete the Phoenix Academy teacher's plan, you need to. My condition is to win the first place in Crow before it is cut in half by the King of Black Flame. Makoto Takahashi complained angrily. Hey! What the commander is doing is quite despicable. I agree with the conditions. It's not very difficult to go up, but as long as I succeed once, the Black Flame King will not be able to have his own comic Crow. This comic will continue to be serialized and become a cash cow for Shonen Jump, as expected. the cartoonist wants to you have the absolute right to speak over your own work, and you can finish it when you want. Only in this way can you say it handsomely. Yeah, I think so too, Phoenix Academy teacher, Eiji Niizuma nodded in agreement while drawing comics. But my plan must be implemented absolutely. Makoto Takahashi put down his wine glass, walked behind the King of Black Flame, and said casually, "So this time, I'm afraid I have to say sorry to you, King of Black Flame King." The cartoonists who couldn't get a word in were listening to the warlike conversation between Makoto Takahashi and Eiji Niizuma, but they felt a very uncomfortable feeling in their hearts. It's not because the two of them are too arrogant in their attitude of talking about their plans as if no one else is around, but, as a bystander, the feeling called unwillingness is roaring and shouting. Whether it's cutting off Crow in half or completing a plan that I still don't know the details of, it doesn't matter anymore. If you don't want to be a bystander who witnesses everything happening, you have to forcefully intervene. If this is a fight, then we want to join in the fight. If this is a confrontation, then we want to compete with you too. As long as I can snatch the first place from you, even just once. Oh my, Black Flame King. Takahashi Makoto poked Nizuma Eiji, who was drawing comics, with a strange smile on his face. Do you feel it? Of course, Nizuma Eiji stopped drawing, stood on the other side of the chair, and smiled. Sure enough, it's just as Mr. Feng Guangyuan expected, everyone is an enemy. So? Well, it's exactly as agreed. Takahashi Makoto and the Black Flame King smiled at each other, and said in unison to the cartoonists who were full of fighting spirit. Alliance is established. Let's leave the real victory or defeat to the end. A good event that falls from the sky. Cool mobile phones are waiting for you. Follow the official account of Chidion/Chinese website, add friends on WeChat at official account enter Dread, and participate now. Everyone has a prize. Follow the Dread WeChat official account now. Well. There is still some time for Dongfang, please don't be too anxious. Looking at the expectations of the adults in the book reviews, a certain cat is under great pressure. By the way, Dongfang and Niankao Sanzan will be the end of the monster era. The next step is the social era that a certain cat has been looking forward to, meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 189. The thing that has most concerned the editorial department of Yuisha's Shounen Jump recently is naturally the manga Crow by cartoonist Eiji Niizuma, which has entered a strategic stage called the Countdown to Half. Originally it was just a matter for the cartoonist, but because of a loud-mouthed editor, after obtaining the consent of Eiji Niizuma, the news became known to everyone. This intelligence leaker is naturally the editor Yujiro, who is called the lackey of the organization by Takahashi Makoto. For a business magazine like Shounen Jump, the negative impact of a popular comic like Crow coming to an end is considerable. Because the animation of Crow is currently on the air, and various peripherals are on sale. If the comic ends suddenly, the consequences will be a huge loss. As the comics continue to be drawn, more profits will be generated. From this aspect alone, the editors in the editorial department are opposed to the idea of cutting Crow in half. Therefore, after everyone on the cartoonist side became enemies, Eiji Niizuma also added the editor's side to the hostile list. As an ally, Makoto Takahashi, although he had already known the news, still expressed great pressure. But the good news is that no one except the editor-in-chief and his new wife Eiji knows the content of Makoto Takahashi's plan. Even Yoshida, who has always been full of curiosity, has entered a busy mode because of the affairs of his new wife Eiji, and has no time to take care of it. Therefore, Makoto Takahashi's impression on the editorial side remains the same as before, without much change. But there is no time to celebrate now. because the comic plot problems have put Takahashi Makoto directly into entanglement mode. As I said before, if you want to prevent the manga crow from being forcibly cut in half by Eiji Niizuma, you must seize the first place from Eiji Niizuma. Although the goal is very simple and sounds very cool, it is very difficult to actually achieve it. Judging from the plot of the comic, Crow has completely reached the late stage. The characters that should appear have already appeared, and the battles that should take place have already happened. At this time, readers have high expectations for the entire comic, and there is no plot aspect. There are too many problems that can be sniped, and leaving aside the plot of the comic, judging from the comic manuscript itself, it is unlikely that Eiji Niizuma, who has been serializing comics for a long time, will enter a brain-dead mode and commit suicide by changing his style of painting. Hey! Is this an exchange of equal value? At this level, it is impossible to kill the King of Black Flame. He suddenly put down the brush and threw the drawings on the table aside. In the surprised eyes of many assistants, Takahashi Makoto jumped down from the chair, formed a circle with his body, rolled around, and kept complaining, thinking about the plot is so troublesome. Drawing comics is also so troublesome. No. In fact, from a fundamental point of view, living itself is a very troublesome thing. This is. Yoshida just entered the door and saw such a scene, with black lines on his face. What happened? The assistants spread their hands and shrugged, saying they didn't know why Takahashi Makoto suddenly entered such a state. Looking at Takahashi Makoto rolling around on the ground, Yoshida, who originally wanted to ask questions, had no choice but to swallow all his doubts. At this time, Takahashi Makoto was obviously not in a state of normal communication. Yoshida's sixth sense told him so. Although I successfully changed my job to a plagiarism maniac after time travel, I have to pay a price for all this. Now is the time to pay the price. Makoto Takahashi stopped scrolling and looked at Yoshida expectantly. My familiar cat, why don't I use you as a sacrifice to please Lord Truth and change the world line to the end of destruction? I didn't know I had such a powerful effect. Yoshida unceremoniously used a combo of swords and complaints, dragged Makoto Takahashi to the table, and said in an unusually serious tone, I heard Yujiro say before, you formed an alliance with Shinsuma-kun. In other words, do you want to help Shinsuma-kun fulfill the agreement and let him directly cut off Crow? What? My beloved cat, you look serious, do you just want to ask this? Makoto Takahashi waved his hand boredly. By the way, you know that so-called alliances are actually holding each other back. Exist. I originally planned to use Shadow Assault to give the King of Black Flame a fatal blow at the critical moment and make the King of Black Flame disappear, but now it seems that Master Jigen of the Phoenix Academy has been tricked by Lord Truth. Holding each other back, what kind of alliance is this? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi speechlessly. Is this the legendary behavior of betraying teammates? Listening to your tone, the editor has been successfully ridiculed. Makoto Takahashi kept tapping his fingers on the table, with an excited look on his face. Just thinking about the things he had been struggling with before, he suddenly entered a decadent mode. The King of Black Flame plans to start a mode where everyone is the enemy. Even my side will also appear as an enemy at critical moments. These are all expected. But the problem now is, the plot of the comic here is not strong. As a plagiarist, Makoto Takahashi, a time traveler, has a large number of comics as material in his brain, so he will not be disturbed by the permanent curse of exhaustion of talent. However, according to the principle of equivalent exchange, he will also be bound by the original work. Just like this time. Several other cartoonists on the cartoonist side were ridiculed by Eiji Niizuma, and entered a stage of overwhelming fighting power. The content of the comics began to change, new characters appeared, and wonderful plots were constructed. Or they improved the quality of the comic drafts and changed the style of the comics. The style of painting, As original comics, the cartoonists on the cartoonist side have unlimited possibilities for combat. But Makoto Takahashi cannot do this, because the comics since his debut have all been plagiarized according to the original work, with only occasional modifications, such as fusion, and so on, but the main plot, the story, as well as the appearance of the characters, basically follow the pace of the original work. Like this time, facing the new wife Ag, who has already started a killing spree and is about to enter the rhythm of the super god, it is almost an impossible task to end the super god killing and so on according to the pace of the original work. In the comic Inuyasha, due to the main plot problem, Naraku, as the main villain, cannot be directly killed by the dog side in a short period of time, and many scenes have not yet appeared, and many characters have not appeared. Even if we enter the 7 people chapter this time and include the appearance of the 7 people, we still can't resist the killing of the King of Black Flame. Slippery Ghost is even more miserable here. The Millennium Kyoto chapter has just ended, and the battle between the Nuragumi and the Hag Oromo Kitsune has just ended. Although it has laid the groundwork for the final battle and has begun to enter the Hyakumono story chapter, but the story of a new beginning, and the crow that has developed to its peak compared, although it is not a fight against the 5 scum, it is still far away. In Chow and Tiger, Xiao Chow is still wandering around with Tiger, constantly traveling among monsters, laying out the final battle with the white-faced man. At this stage, the narrative method of the entire comic has been used by readers. We are used to it, in the same way as PCP, telling the story of Xiao Chow and Ahu, and the new monsters in one or several chapters. This comic is also unable to complete the super short period of time. The second level transformation of Sai, which greatly increases the combat power. He wanted to kill the thief, but he was unable to save his life, so Takahashi Makoto fell into a tangled state. Although there are some problems with Makoto Takahashi's narrative method, Yoshida still understands it roughly after getting along with him for many years. Like Takahashi Makoto, Yoshida is also stuck in a tangled pattern. Previously in the editorial base, Yoshida made bold statements, saying that the cartoonist who could stop Eiji Niizuma would definitely be one of his own. But, just like Takahashi Makoto, the Little Sea Otter is also incompetent. In Little Sea Otter's new serialized comic I Don't Eat This, Little Sea Otter initially planned to draw a story similar to Gintama, which would make readers laugh and cry, but the result was that the drawing with the problem of wind, this comic becomes a pure comedy. Although he pulled Miss Kang Shuhong out and used various excuses to lure Little Sea Otter into desperate mode, Yoshida also knew that it was impossible for Little Sea Otter's comic to win the first place. So Yoshida laid out the strategic direction and settled the Little Sea Otter, and immediately rushed to Takahashi Makoto's house. As a result, Makoto Takahashi, who had high hopes from Yoshida, faced such a problem. Yoshida suddenly felt like he had been abandoned by the world. Hey! I'm the one who brought it upon myself this time, am I? Yoshida sat weakly on the sofa with a gloomy expression on his face. Thinking of what he had said so shamelessly in the editorial department before, he wanted to slap himself twice. Looking at Makoto Takahashi, who was still immersed in the entanglement mode over there, Yoshida sighed helplessly. If I had known better, I wouldn't have said that. Although he plagiarized the rhetoric of Crazy Demon Time Traveler, Yoshida always thought it was just Takahashi Makoto's delusion, but seeing Takahashi Makoto rolling on the ground holding his head, Yoshida couldn't say anything that came to his lips, and fell into silence. Am I expecting too much? Or maybe it's because Cheng's achievements over the years have made me too blindly proud. That's right, at this time, instead of saying that he must surpass Eiji Niizuma, it's better for Cheng to continue to do so like Hiramaru-kun. Achievements. Huh? At this time, rebellion has already started. I almost missed the opening theme of Witch Rina. Makoto Takahashi looked at the time on the wall, immediately stopped his previous abnormal behavior and stood up. He walked to the TV and entered the viewing mode. He kept praising, This voice is indeed that of Rina, the fiercely designated witch of our Phoenix Academy. Ha 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 ha. Can you beat this guy to death? Looking at Makoto Takahashi, who laughed wildly, Yoshida had a dark look on his face. He picked up the manga manuscript on the table and threw it directly. Godlike prediction, dodge activates. Makoto Takahashi turned to look at Yoshida with a gloomy face, and taunted disdainfully, "My beloved cat, even to this extent, dares to disobey me. Is the Phoenix Academy fierce?" Speaking of Cheng, is it time to watch animation now? Yoshida suppressed his anger and charged up Death Gaze. I'm not watching the anime. I'm just listening to the opening song. Although the animation had just started, Makoto Takahashi turned off the TV without hesitation and looked at Yoshida innocently. "If you say anything casually, I will sue you for defamation, my beloved cat. I thought you had already thought of how to solve the comic problem, but I didn't expect you." Player Yoshida was interrupted by the provocation of the Phoenix Academy's fierceness, and his death gaze was interrupted. Player Yoshida changed his move to Dragon Slash because his anger level has reached full value. "Are these your last words?" "Humph. Both you and the Black Flame King are equally naive." Takahashi Makoto walked to the table, picked up the paintbrush, and smiled strangely. "Before, I was assisted by the magic sound of the witch Lena, and I suddenly thought of a strategy to deal with the enemy. But unfortunately, my cat, you will not see that day." What? Yoshida looked at Takahashi Makoto in surprise, and the anger on his face disappeared instantly. "You said you already. That kind of thing doesn't matter anymore. My cat, take this move." The secret of the decapitation, finale tyro finale. Is what Aiken said true? This is the confusion that Yoshida still couldn't let go of before he lost consciousness. A good event that falls from the sky. A cool mobile phone is waiting for you. Follow the official account of Chidion/Chinese website, add friends on WeChat at official account, enter Dread, and participate now. Everyone has a prize. Follow the WeChat official account of Dread now. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 190. This is the beginning of the story of the whole series. This is where the new character appears. Oh. The painting of the little otter. Did they suddenly change the style? Takahashi Makoto smiled expectantly as he flipped through the sample issue of Shonen Jump sent by Yoshida, but unfortunately, all this is useless. With only this level, it's still 100 years too early to resist the Black Flame King. From the moment the wheel of fate began to turn, all the results were already determined. That's right, this is the Steins Gate. Then Yoshida interrupted Takahashi Makoto, who was about to enter the state of middle school laughter without hesitation. He stared at Takahashi Makoto helplessly, suppressing the reversal impulse in his heart to split someone into 17 pieces, and asked in confusion, "What you said before has been thought of. What's the solution?" "I feel that the 3 comics this time are similar to the previous ones in terms of content and character design." "My beloved cat, even you didn't feel it this time? You are so pitiful that you can't even reach this level." Looking at Yoshida with sympathy, Takahashi Makoto tried to make Yoshida's darkness more intense. "So, my beloved cat, you are just an ordinary person. Don't even think about understanding the state of returning to nature in your lifetime." Could it be that the comics serialized in this issue of Shonen Jump are just a simple foreshadowing? And the really exciting content is what comes later. The misled Yoshida, after just a moment of contemplation, showed a look of sudden enlightenment on his face, and immediately picked up the comic manuscript he had just received this time, and flipped through it with full expectation. But Yoshida was flipping through the pages faster and faster, and his expression became uglier and uglier. After a long time, he put down the comics and looked at Takahashi Makoto with a painful look on his face. "Cheng, you must have taken the wrong comics, right? With such simple and ordinary content, let alone defeating Nyaizuma Eiji, I'm afraid I should be thankful to God if I can keep my current ranking in the next period of time. You must have taken the wrong comics, right? My beloved cat, you are indeed a mortal wisdom, Takahashi Makoto sneered and picked up the comics, put the 3 comics in a row, and gave a key hint: don't be blinded by illusions, feel the throbbing from the soul. I still can't understand, no matter how I look at it, I feel that the content of the comics is of ordinary level. Could it be that such an arrangement can improve the level of the comics and allow readers to greatly improve their ability attributes? Don't be kidding. This is a comic, not a rune language. Yoshida said he was under a lot of pressure. That's because you don't believe in my Phoenix Court Kyonari with enough piety. Well, this time it's about the piety of faith again. After a short silence, Yoshida decisively chose to complain and roar, we are discussing comics now, comics. Not your philosophy major, Chen. Wait, who would believe in you, an abnormal human? Tell me clearly first, can you surpass Nyaizuma Ag and stop the comic crow from being the strongest number 1? My beloved cat, you are so anxious about a man, I can completely foresee your fate of being lonely in the future. Takahashi Makoto put away the comic manuscript, and a rare solemnity appeared on his face. Before Yoshida was about to go berserk, he said faintly, it's a bit difficult, but it doesn't mean I can't do it. And, although reason made Yoshida refuse to ask, curiosity rejected reason. I am the ally of the Black Flame King. It's not gorgeous to confront him head-on right from the start. The so-called miracle of turning the tide is to stand up when everyone is in despair. As the opponent of the final battle, he ran out at the beginning, tisk tisk tisk, not to mention that it's not handsome at all. The shame of being the big villain behind the scenes is shattered to the ground. The bomber who ends the super killing in the outfit is really the most lovable. Looking at Yoshida, who was completely stuck in the dead mode, Takahashi Makoto shrugged helplessly. In short, my cat, you have to remember that haste makes waste. Now is not the time for my Hau'er-Hau'er-Nkuma to appear. Then may I ask the almighty Hau'er-Hau'er-Nkuma, when do you plan to launch the so-called general attack? Yoshida himself felt sick when he said it. Because for a black-bellied uncle to turn into a believer of God, the rejection in the soul directly acts on the body. But facing this guy in front of him, Yoshida said that in order to obtain the necessary information and to realize the bold words he had said in the editorial department before, all dignity and integrity can be abandoned. Good question. My cat, now you just need to quietly witness all challengers become martyrs, and then wait for the opportunity. Takahashi Makoto looked at the calendar on the wall, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. The so-called future has been written. All this is the choice of Destiny's Gate. Is it this Destiny's Gate again? What is this thing? Once he can't give a suitable explanation, this guy, Aiken, will use the choice of Destiny's Gate as an excuse. Yoshida looked at Takahashi Makoto with resentment. Although he really wanted to know what the so-called choice of Destiny's Gate was, but this time, Yoshida still rationally resisted his curiosity. The new plot and new characters mentioned earlier are just a test of Eiji Nyaizuma by the cartoonist. Just as both parties had expected, Eiji Nyaizuma's comic Crow still maintains a strong lead. It is not possible to easily defeat Eiji Nyaizuma with just a new plot or a new character. However, through the test of one episode, the cartoonist has realized that it is impossible to surpass Crow with the content of one episode alone. Unlike Makoto Takahashi, who waited for the right time and accumulated strength to prepare for the big move, several other cartoonists on the cartoonist side, after a short test and gained valuable experience, finally couldn't bear it and launched an attack on Eiji Nyaizuma. The first to launch the attack was the comic called Three Shoulders of Justice. The comic with the prosecutor as the protagonist is filled with a lot of legal content, and the appearance of a lot of text descriptions makes the performance of this comic directly linked to the plot itself. The first episode of the story that Taka Hamashoyo used to challenge Nyaizuma Eiji did not perform very well at the beginning, but with the real injustice case as the material, and the friendship between the prosecutor and the police officer. As the story gradually unfolded, the performance of this comic began to rise. Taka Hamashoyo, who was one step ahead of other cartoonists on the cartoonist side, suddenly burst out with such fighting power, which really surprised the editors on the editorial side. Such a development once made the editors think that Taka Hamashoyo would be the first and last challenger. The righteous prosecutor and the wronged good friend, and the shocking reversal in the court debate in the end can be said to be the most exciting part of this story, which directly made Three Shoulders of Justice obtain the second place that it has never achieved before. Unfortunately, this level is still not enough. Nyaizuma Eiji's comic Crow once again took the unshakable first place and conveyed the cruelty of reality to the first challenger. So far, the first challenger, Taka Hamashoyo, and his family Three Shoulders of Justice, have lost. On the side of Miss Aoki Hong, because she finally entered the serialization, she did not take the risk to participate in this challenge under the advice of the editor. Instead, she took the main purpose of stabilizing the current ranking and continued her serialization road in a tepid manner. On the side of Little Otter, because of the temptation of a black-bellied devil editor, Little Otter, who had no motivation before, suddenly became full of momentum this time for some reason. Not only did he change the style of the comics, but he also improved the reading experience of the comics themselves. However, it was completely different from what Yoshida hoped for. The results of the comics did not change much because of this. It was like a fighting type move hitting a ghost type, and it seemed to have no effect at all. So Little Otter and Miss Aoki Hong changed from a husband and wife team to a soy sauce party. The next one to launch the killer move was naturally the silver-haired brother Fukuda. A comic about the career of a racing driver, a high-speed duel between men driving motorcycles. This alone made most male readers like this comic. Compared with the cartoonists on the previous three cartoonists, in addition to letting new characters appear, Brother Fukuda made good use of the effect of the cover title. The power of the two-pronged approach naturally increased the effect a lot. Although in the end, he was still killed by Nyaizuma Eiji and ranked second. But Fukuda's sacrifice was worth it, hey. Taking this opportunity, Fukuda conveyed an important message to the last teammate of the cartoonist side, the good friend combination of Ashiro Mumanjai, that if there is a lack of strength, it can be completely supplemented by the so-called momentum. The momentum gained by the cover title allowed Fukuda to achieve unprecedented results, but the result was still second. With the support of his teammates, Ashiro Mumanjai carried the wishes of the cartoonists, spread the wings of hope, and made a strong debut as the last enemy. The new character joined the story as both a friend and an enemy. Although he did not win the cover title, Ashiro Mumanjai completed the layout of the key points in this episode of the comic PCP using the middle color page. Although it seems to be learning from Fukuda's approach, the actual effect of the comic is beyond Fukuda's. Taking advantage of the opportunity of the middle color page, Yashiro Mumanjai burst out with the most powerful fighting power. But unfortunately, it was Fukuda who made it, and it was also Fukuda who made it. Because Fukuda was too impatient before, the content that should have exploded on the cover was delayed by 2 issues, and it ended up hitting Yashiro Mumanjai, who had finally entered the explosive stage. As expected, the cartoonist side, who was in self-harm and internal strife, sent 2 heads to Nazuma Eiji, allowing Nazuma Eiji to complete a double kill. Through a series of cartoonists' death practices, it is proved that facing Nazuma Eiji, who has entered the runaway mode, it is definitely a wrong branch line choice to confront him head-on. When the cartoonist side suffered heavy casualties, Takahashi Makoto, who claimed to be an ally of Nazuma Eiji, was always in the state of a soy sauce party. Although Yoshida could not help but complain every time he came to collect the comic manuscripts, the result was still the same. Makoto Takahashi always made excuses such as the time is not right or haste makes waste. Just like the previous weeks, Yoshida came to Makoto Takahashi's house to collect the comic manuscripts, and Makoto Takahashi was watching the animation of rebellion. Yoshida, who had learned a profound lesson, did not follow the strategy of visiting the thatched cottage 3 times, and was about to leave with the comic manuscripts, but this time he was unexpectedly stopped by Makoto Takahashi. Question: My cat, heroes always appear at the most critical moment, so? Takahashi Makoto turned off the TV and turned to look at Yoshida, who was surprised. What about the timing of your appearance as a dark hero? Tisk. I don't know if it's because your practice is not enough. That's right, giving the King of Black Flame appropriate despair is the code of conduct for the Walker of the Truth King's generation, the Dark Hero. Although it is confirmed that Takahashi Makoto will be the last enemy of Nazuma Eiji, but, can you not be so confident? It will be very embarrassing if you can't do it. Yoshida, who had learned a lesson before, was originally full of joy, but now he is full of worries. A good event that falls from the sky. Cool mobile phones are waiting for you. Follow the official account of Kittian/Chinese website, add friends on WeChat, add official account, enter Dread, and participate now. Everyone has a prize. Follow the Dread WeChat official account now.